nerves.
A martini doesn't just study the nerves.
Alcohol has economic upsides too.
Alcohol has economic upsides too.
Sobriety is taking over the world.
Sobriety is taking over the world.
The amount of alcohol consumed globally is probably in decline for the first time in history. Across rich countries, many members of Gen Z born after the late 1990s are shunning alcohol entirely. 30% of Americans in their 20s did not drink in the previous year.
30% of Americans in their 30s did not drink in the previous year.
Even in France, young professionals no longer have a pichet of wine with lunch.
Even in France, young professionals don't even have a pichet of wine with lunch.
Elites seem especially likely to snub the bottle. 3 of the past 4 American presidents are teetotal. Barack Obama enjoyed a martini. In Silicon Valley, temperance is a status symbol. Mark Andreessen, an investor, quit alcohol in 2022.
Mark Andreessen, investor quit alcohol in 2022.
Sam Altman of OpenAI writes about how much changed when people stopped drinking alcohol all day.
How much changed when people stopped drinking alcohol all day?
Elon Musk refers to alcohol as a legacy drug.
Elon Musk refers to alcohol as a legacy drug.
Dinner meetings with founders are fueled by green tea. An individual who gives up drinking can look forward to health benefits. They may lose weight. They may sleep better. Yet from an economist's point of view, teetotalism is an incoherent and damaging ideology for 3 big reasons.
Teetotalism is a damaging and incoherent ideology for 3 big reasons.
First, teetotalers are free riders. For generations, alcohol consumption has sustained all manner of social and economic structures.
Alcohol consumption has shaped the generational and social structure.
The abstemious benefit from them, but do not contribute. For instance, non-drinkers who go to social events are free riding on the joviality of hard-working drinkers. What would happen to the social fabric if everyone stopped imbibing? Perhaps Joe Strummer of The Clash, an English rock band, was onto something when he apocryphally said that non-smokers should be banned from buying any product a smoker created.
Non-smokers should not buy any product a smoker created.
Or consider the economics of the restaurant industry. Alcohol offers higher profit margins than food. as it requires less labour to prepare. Indeed, using official American data, your columnist estimates that booze accounts for all the profits of the restaurant industry. Drinkers subsidize non-drinkers. Those who order sparkling water can feel sanctimonious in the short run. But if no one orders a bottle of Bordeaux, many restaurants will go under. In San Francisco, Sobriety Central, they are closing by the dozen.
In San Francisco, the Sobriety Center is closing by a dozen.
Second, abstinence makes people lonelier. For centuries, alcohol has served a social function. It helps people relax. Taking a drink also signals to others that you are happy to be slower and more vulnerable. That you have left your weapon at the door. Which puts them at ease. A study from 2012 in Psychological Science found that alcohol increases social bonding. Robin Dunbar of Oxford University and colleagues find that frequenting a pub improves how engaged people feel with their community.
Satisfied they are with their community.
In turn, raising life satisfaction. It is not a stretch to say that alcohol has played a big evolutionary role in fostering human connection.
It is not a stretch to say that alcohol has played a big evolutionary role in fostering human connections.
Many couples credit alcohol, at least in part, for bringing them together.
Many couples credit alcohol for at least in part for bringing them together.
So it may not be a coincidence that the alcohol-shunning young are lonely. Americans aged 15 to 24 spend a third less time socializing than they did in the early 2000s.
A third less time socializing than they did in the 2000s.
A study published in 2021 by Jean Twenger of San Diego State University and colleagues.
A study published in 2022 by Santiago of San Diego University and colleagues
found worldwide increases in adolescent loneliness.
Young
people are having less sex than older generations. When it is harder to relax, partnering up is more difficult. The third factor in favor of booze relates to innovation. Today, the world sees fewer breakthroughs. Hollywood sustains itself on remakes or sequels, not originals. A recent blog by Peter Rupert, a consultant, finds the same trend for music.
A recent blog by Peter Rupert, a consultant, finds a similar trend in music.
The pace of genuine sonic innovation has slowed dramatically.
The pace of sonic innovation has decreased increasingly.
A paper published in 2020 by Nicholas Bloom of Stanford University and colleagues.
A study published in 2020 by Nicholas Bloom of Stanford University and colleagues
concludes that new ideas are harder to find. Productivity growth across the world is weak. Something has gone terribly wrong in the way that Western societies generate new ideas. In the short term, avoiding alcohol is helpful for working efficiently. If you have a big presentation tomorrow, it is a good idea to stay off the sauce tonight. But consider the kind of world that alcohol allows to exist. Even if messily, unreliably, and at some cost. And abstention seems less sensible. For centuries, creative folk, from Aeschylus to Coleridge to Dickens, have relied on alcohol for inspiration. In the 1960s, when productivity was soaring, everyone was drunk all the time. No other drug has played such a consistent role in human innovation. Being intoxicated opens up the possibility of accidents of insight.
Being intoxicated opens opportunities for accidents of insight.
Purely rational linear minds have fewer of the flashes of brilliance that can turn an art form or an industry upside down. It allows brains to disconnect. A study of American painters in 1946 by Anne Rowe of Yale University
A study of American painters in 1946 by Anne Rowe of Stanford University
noted that a nightly cocktail before dinner may contribute to the avoidance of a state of chronic tension. Especially when creative activity is at its height. Studies suggest that alcohol deployed judiciously can aid the creative process. Andrew Jarosz of Mississippi State University and colleagues have found that intoxicated people solved problems faster. And were more likely to perceive their solutions as the result of a sudden insight.
And were more likely to resolve inspirations in response to a sudden insight.
A similar paper by Matthias Benedek of the University of Graz in Austria and colleagues.
A similar paper by Matthias Gratz of the University of Graz and
Concludes
colleagues
that certain aspects of creative cognition
concludes that certain aspects of creative
benefit from mild attenuation of cognitive control.
benefit from alteration of cognitive.
In the short run, intoxication may limit your brain's processing power.
In the short term, intoxication may
In the short run, intoxication may limit your brain's processing power.
In the short run, intoxication may limit your brain processing power,
And that can be frustrating.
and that can be frustrating.
The long-term effects are much less clear.
The long-term effects are much less clear.
Call me old-fashioned.
Call me old-fashioned.
The best approach, as with most things in life, is moderation.
The best approach, as with most things in life, is moderation.
Not Ernest Hemingway levels of drinking, but not abstention either.
Not Ernest Hemingway levels of drinking, but not abstention either.
What leads to successful human relationships and breakthrough innovations
What leads to healthy human relationships and breakthrough innovations
remains poorly understood.
remains poorly understood.
So even if you are a Silicon Valley whiz kid who wants to change the world,
So even if you are a Silicon Valley whiz kid who wants to change the world,
it is best not to mess around with traditions too much.
it is best not to mess around with the traditions too much.
Gin from the freezer, good vermouth, and a twist.
Gin from the freezer, good vermouth, and a twist.